It's none
Let's
other
get
than
into our
Dr.
next
Kenyatta.
interview. We have Gregory Moore, Commissioner of the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, and John Calipari, head men's basketball coach of the University of Kentucky, to discuss the McLendon Minority Leadership Initiative, MLI. Welcome to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, gentlemen. How's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, doing really good. Really excited to hear a little more about this McLendon Minority Leadership Initiative. Before we get into that, I think it would be appropriate, obviously, with COVID-19. How are you doing? How's your family doing? And how are your players at the University of Kentucky?
You know, we're fortunately, we're all blessed and everybody is good. We have a unique situation that we're truly in a bubble within the basketball program. We have the lodge where they live. Across the parking lot is where they practice, train, lift. They have meals made in where they live and in boxes. We've really, these are people's children. My players think I'm going overboard, but I'm like, no, this is, and we've really been slow. We're still not playing 5 against 5 or 2 against 2. We're doing, to this point, we were doing individuals and now 5-on-0. So, and my personal family's all good so far. We're, I think all of us are trying to wear the mask, listen to the doctors and the science, and, try to do the right thing by everybody.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. And with that, let me get those that may not have heard about this. I'm not sure where they would be if they hadn't. But the purpose, in my understanding of the McLendon Minority Leadership Initiative, MLI, is to provide minorities a jump start to their careers through practical experience, opportunities to build their networks, and instilling the values of John McLendon: integrity, education, leadership, and mentorship. I know you come out and partnered with the commissioner of the SIAC, Gregory Moore, LaVon Moulton over there, the head coach at the University of North Carolina Central University, I should say. And so if you would, tell me a little more, why do this program now?
Now, the bigger question may be, why didn't I push this 10 years ago? What took so long? There's diversity on the fields and on the courts, but there's not diversity in the administration. There's not diversity in decision makers. Each athletic department has 15 decision makers. Where is the minority leadership and decision makers? And that's, as much as a springboard to a career, we're trying to help develop the next wave of leaders and decision makers. And if we coaches, and it's coach driven, it's not me. The initial thing, and again, Greg has been just such a great mentor to me and a sounding board, and to make sure we are on track, to make sure we're doing the right thing. But the idea was to do it at Kentucky. And then it was like, well, if we get other coaches involved, we can maybe do this to scale. There's going to be 20 jobs posted in the next day or so. They may have been posted today. We have over nearly 200 applications in, and we're just now starting to post jobs. The jobs will keep coming in waves as they're funded by coaches. And let me say this, Greg, if you don't mind, I'm going to brag on you a little bit. When I first got going, he and I talked for a while, and I've been involved with different things over the years, but before all this happened, he and I have had conversation. And then when this came about with and I don't know how else to say it, the murder of George Floyd, it became, well, we got to do something. There's got to be action. And the more I was with Greg, here's what I found out. He's about solutions. He thinks in terms of how I know issues, what are solutions? The second thing I loved about him was he would push the envelope. With me, he would push the envelope. One conversation we had, I didn't feel comfortable getting off, and I called him right back and said, Greg, talk to me now and tell me, am I tone deaf? Tell me what. And here's was his comment. You want me to help you with that pipeline. I need help with my pipeline. Let's work together. And he knows what I said. Hey, we'll go shoulder to shoulder. Let me get this up and going, and I'm going to help and be with you whatever you need. But here's the last thing. What I absolutely love. He's not afraid to speak truth to power. He's going to tell the truth. And so for me, who better to be a part of this to say, you know what? Let's see if this makes a difference, because this is real. This is not a one-time optic. We want this to go at least 10 years. We want to have data after 4 to 5 years about, is this working? What do we need to do to make it better? And in 10 years, let's see if athletic departments look different. Lastly, this has gone into business. This has gone into baseball, Major League Baseball, talking about athletes who were in their minors who now need to get back, be a part, taught soft skills that they've never learned, and maybe get educated and then be in management or whatever. This thing, business-wise, my hope is in 10, 12 years, we look and there are business owners that began through here, learning, again, being developed as leaders. There are people in politics. There are people in athletics. There are 5 times as many minority ADs. And let me say this, we're talking women now too. So this is about men and women, minority leaders. If you have an interest, I'm going to throw this in, minorityleaders.org. You can go and put an application in, college graduate. Here you are. It'll walk you through what you have to do. But these aren't just like throw a couple jobs out there. That's not what this is.
That's a really great breakdown in terms of how you encapsulated. This question is for Greg, Commissioner Moore. If you would, personally, how has adhering to leadership lessons changed your career path? And I imagine that in a lot of ways is important why you decided to partner up on this.
Excuse me, adhering to leadership lessons? I don't follow the question, Dr. Phil.
No, I was just saying a part of this is about development of leadership. Inside of management, both of you all are in significant leadership positions. You as the commissioner of the SIAC and John, Coach Calipari, in terms of his leadership as a head men's basketball coach and all the peripherals that it brings together. So I was just asking in terms of, I'm sure you had to develop these leadership skills at some place in some area. Why is that important, and how has it affected you, and why is that important to have a place where you can develop it based on the program that y'all put together?
Yeah, I think one of the most important lessons, and I appreciate everything Coach said, his kind words. I'll just correct the record with respect to Coach Calipari. He's being a bit modest, even though we've been having this discussion post George Floyd, more intensely about providing opportunities. Coach Calipari, going back to his days at UMass, Memphis, Kentucky, he's been providing African American coaches, strength coaches, sports administrators opportunities for many, many moons. My first encounter with him was way back in 2011 when he appeared at a ESPN function discussion on racial equity at Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Atlanta, Georgia. Out of that panel discussion, he began playing against some of our schools. Morehouse, I believe, played at Rough Ringer that year, and most recently this year, Coach Cal invited Kentucky State student athletes to play at UK. So, he's not new to this discussion. And more importantly, what always impressed me about Coach Cal was not what he says, but what the families, and more importantly, the mothers and his former players say about him in the program. He's always given me the impression, and the families of his players have given me the impression that he puts the kids first in terms of providing them opportunities to better their lives. And I think his track record and what his former players have gone on to do, it kind of reinforces that idea. So this is, to me, in direct alignment with what Coach has been doing for many, many years. In terms of leadership, to me, Dr. Gaville, to me, leadership and service are opposite sides of the same coin. We have a lot of folks who want to lead, but they don't understand that, they don't have a full appreciation of the service component of it. And if you don't have a overarching mission and purpose to help people, then you're probably not qualified to lead anyone. And I think that's the most important, lesson I've kind of tried to follow over my career, that, you should go into any environment with an overarching objective to serve. And when you have that, if you're driven by that mission and purpose, then that, to me, is the core qualification of leading.
Certainly. I appreciate you sharing that, the contextuality of that. If you would, Mike, would you follow up with a question?
Yes, Coach Calipari, Coach and Commissioner Moore. This is Mike Washington here, and my question is somewhat twofold. First of all, this program has gained traction. It's sprouting legs, it's growing. First part of that is, how are you positioning that program with potential sponsors? And I would even say and/or champions of the program. And then second part of that is, what has been the feedback from outside with regard to this program? I know you had to have thus far received overwhelming feedback and accolades on the program. What does that look like as well?
Let me say one thing, Dr. Cabell. When you and Mike, I appreciate your question.
Thank you.
I got to say this in every time that Greg and I get on. One thing that my wife and I know and realize and accept and appreciate is the fact that our success, my success, the things that have happened for me and my family have been a direct correlation between African-American families entrusting us with their son. If they had not, we would have no success at all, which leads me to say, how do I give back? How do I help? How do I create access and opportunity? When you ask me about, okay, who's excited about this thing turned around in about 5 weeks. 5 weeks. Wow. And so everyone we talked to, Greg and I have been on great calls together. He and I ping pong back and forth, and it's unbelievable. Like, I get off the call inspired. We've talked to different companies around the country, but the issue is they don't move as quick as we move. I like to work based on, we should have had this done yesterday. They move a little slower, but I don't think there's one company that we've talked to. And again, when you talk about the top coaches in college, basketball and football, they're involved in this. They're committed to this. And so businesses will come along. Right now, we'll have 20 jobs posted. My guess was within 2 to 3 weeks after that, we'll have another 20 to 30 jobs posted. And by the time September rolls around, we'll be at 60 to 70 positions. And again, these are opportunities. This is a springboard. Anyone out there, any future leader that says, I just haven't had a chance. I don't have the connections. I don't think I'm going to get an opportunity. This is what this is about. Now, you have to perform. You have to take advantage of the situation and your opportunity. And then I would tell you, run with it. But they're going to have mentors within the athletic department. The coaches who are funding this, not the athletic departments, the coaches will also serve as mentors. And again, this thing is, I'm looking at this, and I said to somebody, I hope we look back in 20, 25 years and we said, he's running for president. Do you know he went through the McLendon Initiative? And so we don't know where this is going to go. But I have hopes, and the reason I feel good is the coaches that have committed to this, committed for multiple years. Not I'm in and I'm out, I showed that I care, and I'm done. That's not what this is.
No doubt about it. Charles, if you would follow up with a question, or Commissioner Moore, did you want to jump in there? I apologize.
No, I would just echo that. We have been on a couple of calls with potential partners. The calls have went well. I'll just say, as a son of a sports fan and been a long-time admirer of Coach, great coaches are, they're teachers. They're great communicators. They also can sell, right? So to be able to get a coach, a Hall of Fame coach with Coach Calipari's skill set, to lend his skills to support, historically black colleges in general, and the McLendon Initiative in particular, it's been a great privilege for me, and I'm very optimistic that at some point, we'll be able to, as Coach said earlier, to see some investments in these institutions materialize at some point down the line.
Great point. In a lot of ways, you're a modest man yourself in regards to many of the platforms of how you extended the reach of the SIAC in many different facets. Obviously, in terms of this call right now, we can't name them all, and it's not necessarily the appropriate place, but I did want to share and put that out there. So thank you both for all the work you're doing. With that, let me let Charles follow up with a question.
Yeah, Coach Calipari, Charles Bishop here. And I wanted to just ask, just listening to the information, I guess the natural question I want to ask is, how does an applicant sort of prepare themselves for this leadership initiative? What are the things that they need to be doing right now to prepare themselves as an applicant?
Yeah, because they may want to do this next year after this season. So you're right, but we have this came together so fast because we were able to house it in the John McLendon Foundation. And please, everybody listening, Google John McLendon, a pioneer in our profession of coaching, a true gentleman who didn't do it screaming and yelling. Now, they said I had Larry Brown, who you guys all know. Larry Brown, the great Hall of Fame basketball coach, was at SMU last. And he said to me, he was the hardest guy that I've ever had to play for. And I said, why? He said, and he never raised his voice. He said, because all you did is run. He brought fast break basketball to basketball. The four-corner offense, do you remember the North Carolina?
Yes.
Oh, no, that was Coach McLendon's offense. That was his offense.
That's right.
So you need to look there and Google who he is and what he is. And then the second thing that happened was Tony Manfuso from ProLink Staffing said, look, I'm going to do this, and this is going to be worth about $250,000 of service, but I'm giving it to you because I believe in this. So all the applications would go to ProLink Staffing. The person, again, we're asking for, because we want these to be jobs, so a college graduate, and now all of a sudden they'll interview you. We're going to have jobs like Gonzaga, all the way down to Florida, over to Texas, over to Kentucky. I mean, these are all over the country now. So you may be somewhere where you want to do this, but he will then say, here are the candidates. And if you didn't make the list, they are going to call the candidates that didn't and say, here's where you're short. Here's what you got to do. And then you can reapply a year from now. How about this one? He's going to have a database, Charles, of minority leaders and candidates in all kind of different fields, where a business may call up and say, I'm looking for an accountant. I'd like a minority accountant. What do you have that? And all of a sudden, he's going to have a pool. I'm telling everybody, get involved in this. And it may not be in athletics that it helps you, but it's. Right. I'm looking at this saying and would you agree, Greg? We don't even know where this is going. It changes by the day, but we're using athletics as the springboard.
Wow.
Yeah, I would just add to that, Dr.
No doubt about it. Please do.
Yeah, I would just add to that by saying what kids need to do to prepare is, people ask me, like, I practice law still practice law for almost 20 years. And folks will say, what do you have to do to prepare to be a good sports lawyer? I said, you got to be a good lawyer. You got to learn the law. Sports business is just business. So, the point is that if you're in school and you're a marketing major or a business major or accounting major, if you work in a sports context, that makes you kind of a sports accountant, but you have to be a good accountant, right? So to me, the best preparation is the nuts and bolts skill sets that you need to succeed in business. You got to develop that because those will be transferable in a sports context.
All right, I got to throw it out again. MinorityLeaders.org. MinorityLeaders.org. If you go there, you'll get all the information.
Say that one more time.
MinorityLeaders.org.
Got it. MinorityLeaders.org. Final question for you, Greg, and then John, you can have a closing framing on this as well. But one of the things you talked about, Coach, was the need for preparation and being prepared and how you go into this. And I'm also of the thought process that when you have the partnership of this magnitude, that we, and when I say we as HBCU alumni that happen to be in that place, is also about making sure that we support this as well. So, Greg, how can HBCU alumni help this program as well? How do we become engaged as alumni that believe in this and see the power of this and what it can do with HBCU students, in particular minorities, even from a bigger perspective? How do we help facilitate pushing this forward, if you would? And again, you can start with Greg, and this can also be one of those questions that you can close your thoughts on this as well, John.
I think the first thing that alumni have to do, there's a few things. That's a great question, Dr. Gabil. I think the first thing that there has to be some awareness of the problem. And it's not enough to just say, well, there's not enough black coaches and ADs. And I think people need to understand at least the basic framework of the challenge, in terms of empirically. That college sports is a $12 billion a year business. That the Power 5 leagues generate $2.5 billion of that money. And that the two sports that generate revenue, basketball and football, are approaching 60% African American, young men. And that's an important thing to understand, because once you understand that the college sports economy, by and large, is not only being financed by African American young men, but when you look at Title IX, right, and all the sports that are financed by Title IX, there's a significant underrepresentation in African Americans in sports like field hockey and volleyball and swimming and fencing and the like. My point is, you have to understand that to understand the urgency of what Coach is talking about in terms of the moral imperative of making sure that African Americans are not just playing on the field and the gridiron on the courts, that equity dictates that we have to get more opportunities in the athletic departments and the administrative capacities. So I think that's the first thing, is just become aware of that number and the economics of what the problem is. The second thing, once you're aware of that, begin to have these kind of conversations with your alumni, with your fellow alumni associations. Begin to share the opportunity that Coach Cal is talking about. MinorityLeaders.org encourage as many young people or young alumni who want to work in sports, college sports in particular, to apply and just really push to raise awareness of this opportunity. And the other thing is important. You got to give back to your school. Whether you're an alumni of the school or not, you have to give back, because these schools, there's a study done by the I think Department of Education several years ago that said historically black colleges generate $10 billion of economic impact, over $10 billion of economic impact in the southwest and southeastern part of the United States. The reason why I think that's very important is because you're looking at towns and communities that where our schools are located that enjoy poverty rates that are 2 to 3 times the national poverty rate. Last time I checked, in 2010 census, The poverty rate is around 15%. Dr. Gaville, Tuskegee is 40% poverty. Albany, Georgia is where Albany State is 30% poverty. The area around Morehouse and Clark approaching 30%. So, if you care about income inequality, if you understand the impact that these schools have in communities with jobs, educational opportunities, whether you went to these schools or not, and you care about equity, you have to begin to invest in these schools and contribute to these institutions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very much so. Yeah.
Very.
Certainly, I want to say
one thing. I'll add one thing, Dr. Gaville. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I've been following your research for over a decade. I happened to just come across your research when I was teaching as an adjunct in a sports master's program, and I uncovered one of your white papers that focused on some of these economic issues in terms of HBCU athletics in particular. And I'm unaware of anyone in the country, any academic in the country, who's contributed more to this discussion with respect to the economics of historically black college athletic departments and universities than yourself. And you've been doing this for a very, very long time with not as much fanfare as you deserve, which is why I'm glad we had a chance to go on your show this evening.
Thank you for that. This is Dr. Gaville, inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're going to take if you all will hold on, we're going to take a quick break, and we'd like to let you finish that full discussion. Give us about 30, because we're going to sign off on one of our over-the-air programs, and then we'll allow you both to have a closing statement. It'll be about 30 seconds, and we'll be right back. This is Dr. Gaville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Greg Moore, Commissioner of the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, and John Calipari, head men's basketball coach at the University of Kentucky. Stick with us. They're talking about McLendon Minority Leadership Initiative, MLI. You can go to www.minorityleaders.org to find out more, but stick around. We'll be right back to allow them to close on some very important facts that you need to know. Give us a Perry, the head men's basketball coach of the University of Kentucky, to discuss McLendon Minority Leadership Initiative, MLI. Again, you can go to www.minorityleaders.org to get more information. And with that, we want to close out on this conversation. I know, John, you had some finishing thoughts that you wanted to add to the discussion, and certainly wanted to make sure we got that in. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doctor. Here's, you asked how people can get involved. Let me explain what the funding is. So if you are hired in one of these positions, you're going to get a grant of $2,500 a month, which is going to be $30,000. Now, most people, when you get interns or those, and a lot of times it's you're working for nothing, or practically, and this is not that. This is, we don't want anybody to have to take a loan. We don't want anybody to have to borrow from friends. Take a second job, not dip into savings. This is supposed to be a springboard. So each position is about $30,000, which is what the coaches are funding. Now, I would say if anybody wants to be involved, call your school and say, hey, are we doing any of this? If you would like to give money to matching funds, we'll do it. Now, we have North Carolina Central, and Lavelle Moton right now is involved. Yeah. I've had 5 different calls from HBCU coaches who want to be involved in this, and we're trying to figure out how we do it. But these are jobs that are being paid, and they're, it's a great entry to learning and being involved and developed as a leader and a future decision maker.
Perfect. Well said. And I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy gentleman, taking care of a great deal of the business, both in your organizations and institutions. And for you to get out here and take your time to visit with us to provide more information on this program, the John McLendon, Minority Leadership Initiative, as we talked about the values of John McLendon, integrity, education, leadership, and mentorship, all the historical factors that both of you have talked about. Again, I want to say thank you for your time. And anytime you have an update that you need a platform to get out, please know that you have a place to share that information with us. And again, gentlemen, thank you for your time. We hope to hear from you soon. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.